Eastern Congo conflict. This conflict has been called Africa's World War, and yet it barely makes a dent in global news cycles. It started decades ago, but the current wave of violence kicked back into high gear around 2021. The key hotspot is the North Kivu region. Armed rebel groups, most notably the M23, are clashing with Congolese government forces. Meanwhile, civilians are caught in the crossfire. We're talking about millions displaced, thousands killed, and entire towns erased off the map. So who's M23? They're a rebel group that originally formed over grievances about the treatment of ethnic Tutsis in Congo. But this isn't just a domestic fight. M23 is widely believed to be supported by Rwanda, which claims it's acting to protect its national interests. Rwanda denies direct involvement, but the UN and multiple human rights groups suggest otherwise. Meanwhile, Uganda also has forces in the region, supposedly targeting Islamist rebels. But their presence adds another layer of tension. It's a conflict fueled by ethnic divisions, but also by money, specifically Congo's massive mineral wealth. The Eastern Congo is full of cobalt, gold, and coltan, all crucial to electronics and EV batteries. That's right, the tech in your pocket might be linked to the chaos on the ground. Sahel War. The Sahel is a vast strip of land stretching across Africa just below the Sahara. There are countries like Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Chad. This whole zone has become one of the deadliest conflict areas in the world. Groups like ISIS in the Greater Sahara, Al-Qaeda-linked factions are spreading across borders, launching attacks on soldiers, aid workers, and civilians. But it's not just terrorism. In many places, these groups literally take over countries left by corrupt or overthrown governments. They're setting up false courts, collecting taxes, even running markets. Some locals actually prefer them to the official military forces, which says a lot about how badly things have broken down. Since 2020, there's been a domino effect of coups in the region. Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger have all had military takeovers, promising security but often delivering more instability. These new regimes have expelled French forces, ended partnerships with Western powers, and invited Russian-backed mercenaries like Wagner into the region. The result? A chaotic tug-of-war between Western interests, Russia's influence, and extremist factions, all playing out across villages and deserts. The death toll is staggering. Since 2015, tens of thousands have been killed, and over 5 million people are displaced. Schools have shut down, markets have collapsed, and entire rural areas are under de facto militant rule. Sudan Civil War. This war started in April 2023. On one side, you've got the Sudanese armed forces, led by the head of the military, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. On the other side, the Rapid Support Forces, a paramilitary group commanded by Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo. So basically, two generals with armies, tanks, and no intention of sharing power. They were supposed to be transitioning Sudan to a civilian government after a military coup in 2021. That didn't go so well. Instead of handing over power, both sides turned Khartoum, the capital, into a war zone. The result? Thousands dead, millions displaced, and entire cities bombed out. The UN calls it one of the worst humanitarian crises in the world today. Hospitals have been destroyed, people are starving, and even aid workers have been attacked. The internet's been cut off in major areas, which only serves to keep this conflict more obscure. Cameroon's Anglophone crisis. Cameroon is officially bilingual, French and English, but in reality French dominates everything: government, courts, schools, services. Back in 2016, English-speaking lawyers and teachers in the northwest and southwest regions started protesting, demanding fair treatment and local autonomy. The government's response? Crackdowns, arrests, and military force. What started as peaceful protests turned into an armed conflict. English-speaking separatists declared the creation of a new nation called Ambazonia, which, yes, sounds like a made-up place from a dystopian novel, but they're dead serious. Since then, there's been a full-blown insurgency. Over 6,000 civilians alone have been killed so far, and to be clear, both sides have committed atrocities. Armed separatists have kidnapped students and teachers. Government forces have carried out raids and mass arrests. Myanmar Civil War. This one started in 2021 after a military coup overthrew the democratically elected government. The military, known as the Tatmadaw, didn't like how the 2020 elections turned out. So they declared the results fake, stormed in, and arrested government leaders. People protested peacefully at first. Massive street movements, banging pots, holding signs. The military responded with bullets. From there, things escalated fast. Civilian protesters started arming themselves, and rebel groups, some of which had already been fighting the military for decades, saw an opportunity and joined in. What was once a dictatorship versus democracy situation has turned into a full-scale civil war, involving dozens of ethnic militias and the military regime. Mozambique insurgency. Let's move to southern Africa. Mozambique, specifically the Cabo Delgado region. For years, it's been a hotspot for a violent Islamist insurgency. It began in 2017 when a group locally known as Al-Shabaab started attacking villages. Their goal? The establishment of an extreme Islamic state. Their methods? Beheadings, kidnappings, and burning homes to the ground. The situation got so bad that entire towns were wiped out. People fled into the forest or crossed borders into neighboring countries. But the situation became even more of a mess when Mozambique discovered huge natural gas reserves right in the middle of this conflict zone. Foreign companies, including some from Europe and Asia, piled in. Then came private military contractors, then came more violence. International forces from Rwanda and other African countries stepped in to help push back the insurgents. It worked, for a while. But the attacks haven't stopped completely. They've just become more scattered and harder to track. Gang wars in Haiti. Haiti has basically been without a fully functioning government since the assassination of its president in 2021. Since then, violent gangs have filled the power vacuum, and we're not talking about small-time criminals. These are heavily armed groups controlling large parts of the capital and beyond. For reference, every dot on this map is an area controlled by a criminal organization. As such, they're launching full-blown assaults on neighborhoods, burning homes, kidnapping civilians, and clashing with each other in armed battles that leave bodies in the streets. The National Police Force? At one point, Haiti had fewer than 10,000 active officers for over 11 million people, and most of those officers refused to enter gang-controlled zones. It's like sending more security into a battlefield. Obviously, civilians are caught in the middle, lacking access to food, medicine, and clean water. At one point, even the main port and airport were shut down by gang attacks. Think about that. The country's borders were basically sealed by criminals. Tigray conflict aftermath. You may have heard of the Tigray War in Ethiopia, especially when a ceasefire was signed in late 2022. That agreement was supposed to end one of the deadliest wars in recent history, hundreds of thousands dead in just 2 years. But the war didn't just end there. While the federal government and Tigray's leadership signed the peace deal, ethnic militias and soldiers from neighboring regions kept fighting. The situation is further complicated by Ethiopia's other conflicts. Areas like Oromia and Amhara are also facing rising violence, making it harder to stabilize the country long term. Thanks for watching. See the video on your screen? Well, YouTube thinks this one might interest you as well, so go ahead and check it out if you like.